So this is the being a producer or producer overview course, and this is there's no technical content to this show about how to use cameras or set up microphones or anything like that. This is strictly about what it means to be a producer, and specifically what it means to be a producer in local access television. And we're going to cover what is local access television so that you can kind of have an idea of the framework of the what you're getting into here with local access television, okay? And as I said, this is a more of a theory and what it takes to be a producer and what are all the responsibilities of a producer, and also kind of as a background, we'll do it within the context of what is local access and what is this local access world about and where does BevCam fit in, okay? And please, if you have a question, just raise your hand or just yell out the question. It's very informal in here, okay? So, local access television, what is it? One thing it is, it's not PBS. A lot of people, when you say you're local access TV, they say, oh yeah, public broadcasting. No, we're not public broadcasting. We're local access television. And what exactly that is, we'll get into in the future slides. What does local access television mean to the community? We'll talk about that. And I like to say that, as this guy here standing on the soapbox, local access to me is a representation of the fundamental expression of the First Amendment right to free speech. So that whether you have a political talk show or you want to talk about the prehistory of the earth or how to plant a garden or about Mongolia or whatever, puppets, you have the right to do that. You can talk about anything on BevCam and you can create a show. Okay? All right. Let's see. Just a little bit of history so you can kind of put this into framework. In the 1970s, something called the Cable Franchise Policy and Communications Act, in 1974 actually, was passed by Congress. This was the National Congress in Washington, D.C. And what it said that cable companies, in return for running wires and digging trenches in towns all across the country and providing cable access television service, they must provide the resources back to that community for local access television, which means channel capacity on their network, the facilities, and the funding to provide local access. And the intent of that law was to give communities and the people within the communities the opportunity to produce locally initiated programming. That's what we're all about, okay? Initially, the cable companies did this by themselves. So for instance, Comcast on Tozer Road, just up the road here, initially, their own staff provided studio time and support for producers like yourselves that wanted to produce shows. But because of the nature of local access, there's no advertising, no money coming into Comcast or Verizon or AT&T or Time Warner or whoever. They kind of did it with a left-hand way. They didn't do a lot of outreach to local producers because to them this was a money. In other words, they had to provide money. There was no money coming back to them. So now it's most frequently done by a 501c3, a nonprofit such as what BevCam is. That is the organization now that provides the wherewithal for local access television. And every city that has an agreement with their local cable company has what they call a franchise agreement. Okay? And that's the enabling document. It spells out all the specifics of what the cable company will do for the city in providing the funding, the money, etc. And this is an agreement between the city and the cable company. So this is not an agreement between Comcast and BevCam. It's an agreement between Comcast and the city of Beverly. And there's one of these, or potentially could be one of these, in every city in the country. Peabody has one, and Salem has one, and Danvers has one, Cape Ann has one, etc. Okay? And really, it's the lifeblood of the contract, really, is what it provides in terms of money, because when the cable companies don't have their own, are not providing their own studios or their own people to train, they provide the money so that BevCam, I can hire staff and I can buy cameras and I can keep up a studio and provide all the resources to you. This is the lifeblood of BevCam. It's the money that's provided to us through the cable company, through the agreement with the city. And the city and BevCam also have an agreement where it's spelled out how BevCam will then fulfill all of the requirements and everything that's within the contract that's between the cable company and the city, okay? So it provides capital funds, operating funds. Normally these contracts run for 10 years all across the country, and ours runs now until May 5th, 2021. We just renewed it a couple of years ago. This is a picture in City Hall where the mayor signed the contract. It's a lady named Jean Lyman on the left. She's with Comcast just down Tozer Road here, and she was the negotiating person for Comcast during this. So the cable provider in Beverly is Comcast, and there's no exclusivity. One thing, this comes up every so often by people who are not aware of the facts, or are not aware of the situation. They think that Comcast has an exclusivity in BevCam to provide cable service. No, they do not. And in fact, the federal law that enables local access says that there cannot be an exclusive nature of a contract in a city, okay? Anybody can come in, and that goes for anybody can come into Beverly. And we have, the city has outreached to Verizon, which is the other big player in Massachusetts, because a lot of the cable companies are regional in scope, and the ones in this part of the country are certainly in Massachusetts are Comcast, Verizon, and to a smaller extent, RCN. And then the city has outreached to Verizon, come in, please be another participant in providing another option for subscribers for their cable needs, but they have refused. And it all has to do with their decision based on productivity or profitability. They did not think that they could make enough of a profit, because if they came into BevCam, they would have to compete with Comcast for the subscribers that are already Comcast subscribers. And they did not feel that they could either get enough subscribers away from Comcast or provide a richer service, so they have declined that. And that's strictly a decision made on their part based on their profitability. George?
So DirecTV has no involvement whatsoever?
DirecTV is a satellite service. Right, we're talking about cable.
They're totally out of it.
They're totally out of it. They have nothing to do, they are not touched by the Cable Franchise Act. But it's a very good question, because some people now are saying that, see, satellite TV, when this act was initiated, didn't exist. Or it may have, but Fred would probably know. But satellite transmission didn't exist at that time, so they weren't included. Now that there's more and more satellite, people are saying, well, wait a minute. In theory, they provide the same thing that a cable company does. They provide local broadcasting. They aggregate content by networks and different distributors. Why shouldn't they have to pony up and provide the money to the cities as well? And that's something that the Federal Communications Commission probably will take up sooner or later and try to cut through that Gordian knot. Yes, Sandra?
Does Verizon broadcast any of BevCam's programs?
No, they don't. If they came in and if they signed an agreement with the city, then they would. And a lot of cities do have more than one. We are probably we're one of the exceptions to the rule. Most cities in Massachusetts have at least two, and some have three cable companies. So you, as a resident there, can make a choice between a cable company to provide your cable service. April.
So, so most towns have several people that they can buy their cable service from. But are there many towns where all the cable services are offering this sort of BevCam? availability.
They would have to. By law, they have to.
If they're offering the service, they have to have one.
Because that's what the Cable Television Act of 1974 says. If you're providing cable service in a city, you must
The
provide.
only reason the other guys, the competition, don't have one is because they're not offering their service anywhere in Beverly.
They're not offering any television service with Beverly. No service.
So if they're in.
If
they're
they
in.
did, they'd have to include BevCam, yes, because federal law says they have to. Yeah, good question. All right, so just to give you an idea of how this happened, in 1981, Continental Cable signed a contract for 10 years, all right, and it was run by Continental Cable. In 1991 or 91, they renewed their license for 10 years, and then 1996, US West, which is one of the baby bells, bought Continental. In 1998, Media One bought US West. In 2002, AT&T bought Media One, and they renewed this contract, the 1991 contract, for another 10 years. And in October 2001, the management of this contract that was with AT&T transferred to BevCam when we became incorporated as a 501c3 and took over the management of that. And in 2004, Comcast bought out AT&T. So our agreement, and in 2011, it was renewed for another 10 years with Comcast. Okay, I know you don't have to remember that, but I just want to show you how the landscape changes. The whole landscape of as you know, of telephone service, long distance, satellite, TV, all of that has been, just in a state of complete change in the last 20 or 30 years. Okay, so right now, as I mentioned, we have the city has a license renewal with Comcast that runs through May of 2021. Now, you'll sometimes hear local access referred to as PEG access, P-E-G. And why PEG? Because it refers to the three types of broadcasting in a generalized group. Public broadcasting, which is what you guys are all about, is anybody, any individual, any organization, any civic group, any community group, any nonprofit can become a member of BevCam and will broadcast under the public in that realm. The educational, E, is the needs of the school. That educational channel then would be typically run by the schools, but let me get back to that. And government would be the municipal program, city council meetings, or city council meetings, elections, things like that. Now, most cities have 3 channels, okay? Okay, so that whether they have Comcast or Verizon, they might have 3 channels from Comcast and 3 channels from Verizon because of the PE&G. BevCam only has 2, and that's a relic of how the contract was negotiated back in 2001. Okay, but our new contract that was just negotiated in 2011 gives us the option for a 3rd channel, which we will probably exercise in the next couple of years. So right now we have channel 8. We only have 2 channels, which is a combined public and government channel, and channel 22, which is the education channel. Okay? And sometimes in some cities, you may get a school district running the education channel. You may get a branch of the city running the G channel. In our case here, BevCam runs both channels, although channel 22 is programmed in large part by the students that sit in this room during the day. In fact, there's some of the awards that they've won back there for producing television on BevCam. My staff actually trains them how to do television. The same thing that those of you who are going to go on with the other modules that we're doing this week and next week, the same, we teach the students the very same way. And then they make a proposal to the teacher. They want to do a program on this or that, the other thing. I think right now they have, in fact, there's a schedule. These are the shows. These are series. These are all series that are actually produced by students. They're run by students. They tape them. They provide the talent. They come up with the ideas, and this is their airing schedule on channel 22. So I think about 2.5, 3 years ago, there were no shows being produced by the students. All they did was cover, let's say, the prom or the graduation, things like that. But we started working very closely with the school, and this is where we've come a long way. But that's the E section. We're here to talk about P, public, which is you guys. Okay. What are some of the core values of local access? We're strictly non-commercial, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. We want to promote civic dialogue, which George Binns certainly does on their show. We want to feature localism. We want to hone in on what's happening in our community, for the most part. Okay. We want to espouse a diversity of viewpoints, which you certainly do. Ha, George. We want to further media literacy. A lot of people have no idea about how to produce television or even how to set up a PowerPoint presentation or what have you. And we've had people who come in who are editing video now who were computer illiterate, like when they started. They didn't even know how to do word processing or any other kind of anything on a computer. And we want to foster community engagement. Okay, we're kind of, if you come into BevCam any day of the week, any time of the day, you'll find people editing, people talking, people discussing. Right, Fred?
That's right.
Oh, that's right. Our public access mission is to educate, encourage, support, and do outreach. We want to enable communication through media. We are a community resource, okay? We're an enabler. We're a conduit for you, okay? And you folks know that our individual memberships are only 25, senior memberships are 10. And let's take a look at what you get for that from BevCam. You get free studio TV production training, which a lot of you are signed up for in the next couple of weeks. You get free use of our video editing suites, free use of our studio. You can check out equipment to do on-location taping. We'll help you set up and help you produce shows through pre-production meetings. We'll give you crew help. We'll give you staff assistance in any aspect of producing the show. And of course, people can participate in BevCam at many levels. You can be a sponsor. You can be a volunteer. You can be a producer. You can be talent. So there's a lot of different ways that you can participate. And one thing I do want to say is that we do have an incredible variety of programming, and I'm going to run through a bunch of slides here, and some of them I think feature some of the shows that you folks produce, and show you that it belies a number of years ago. We were tarred with this broad brush that local access television is, oh yeah, it's two guys talking about zoning regulation changes. No way. I mean, we have a lot of different programs, very comprehensive array, and we've submitted, if you look at that wall when you walked in our reception area, you'll see how, and we just started doing this like about 2009. We didn't even think that our programming was good enough to submit to national and regional competition. And you can see that we've been very, very fortunate that our programming has been considered. And these are what the kids have just won, and there's more of their awards on the wall in the other room. So you can see that just in 2 or 3 years, you can see how well they're doing by the fact that they're winning national and regional awards. And the thing that we try to do, and this is you as producers, we try to make our sets more innovative. We do special intro, outro segments that, of course, your show has Living the Good Life has one, and What's Happening has one, so that it's like a real television program that you'd see on network television with opening music and credits and different things like that. We're teaching producers how to edit, and Kim is, when is it, Wednesday night? Kim is doing an editing class, Editing 101. And let me just give you a quick sampling of some. Okay, a lot of our ongoing shows. Friends of Beverly Animals has a show. Reflections, which is the Historical Society show with Fred Hammond. The Bobby G Show. What's Happening? There you see Elliot Gale and who is that with them? Is that Dr. Immerman? I'm not sure. But anyway, that's the show that George Binns is associated with. Kiwanis Conversations, Living the Good Life, has been producing now for about 8 years. I think they produced like over 80 or 90 shows. Debuts, Pat Tobas, she brings everything from flamenco dancers to like Las Vegas style brass horn bands to Russian folk trios. Live at Chianti, we had a producer, Hava Hudson, who actually we taped the show at Chianti Jazz Club over right on Cabot Street. Yoga Passion was another one of our regularly produced shows. Senior Solutions, we had a live audience here at this discussion of senior topics. Talent Quest, we had a live band, we had a studio audience, and we had performers performing, and Deborah Crosby was the hostess and producer of the show, and people would perform and sing and dance and what have you. So you can see the comprehensive nature of a production like that, everything that would be involved. We did an interview with John Tierney. Nelson Benton is retired Arizona, but he was the editorial page editor of the Salem News until about a year ago. Out and About was another show Hava Hudson had. She had entertainers and screenwriters and performers on. Some of our new producers, Peter Stewart, he's got a show called I've Got Music in Me. Roger Kimball had a show on the Woodville String Quartet. He's on the back right there with his cello. Harmelink Physical Therapy had a show called Let's Get Physical. The Beverly Rotary Club has a show called Rotary Roundtable. A member of the class of '59 had a show about the greatest class ever at Beverly High School. Barbara Alex, live jazz sessions that they do in our studio, and you can see how we're set up there. Dick Kelly and the 101st Airborne did a show now. They've done 3 of them now. A veterans fishing trip that they did out of Salisbury. Girdler House does a show from time to time. Joel Richardson, Looking Back on Track. Hey, there you go. Yeah, and that's Roger and yeah, right there. Live around the studio, Brian Thompson, one of our producers, does a show. Matt Peugeot did a show called No Country for Old Buildings about preserving historical architecture in Beverly. Beverly Main Streets, Lee Yaffa does a show called On the Spot, where he interviews business owners in their place of business. Hey, Sylvia, teaching in Mongolia. She had a wonderful young lady from Mongolia that came in, and she is a principal at a school in Mongolia, and I had a chance to interview her about teaching in Mongolia. Jim Morocco did and I think I misspelled your name there, did I? 2 R's, sorry, Jim. The Ghost Army. Dr. Alexander Angelov does a show called Medicine of the Future. Leah Hill, one of our new producers, does a show called All About Autism. The First Church in Wenham has started broadcasting their church services. Catherine Bradford, who is Amy's friend, does a show called Last Frontier. Mike Medloff, who signed up for this class, does this thing called Sea Shuttle, where he takes kids out and teaches them about life, flora, and fauna on the ocean. Right Mix Quartet has a show called Strike a Chord. Fred Sorowick, the Prehistoric Project. Sandra Lawson, Get Your Garden Growing. And a show that we started filming last October, Phil Kowalski does a new show called Lighthouses of New England. Now let somebody tell me that local access is boring or does not have a wide and comprehensive array of shows, huh?
I gotta say, I have not seen, since we've had Dish, it's probably been 5 years since I've looked at local access. I'm just absolutely amazed. Now, what happens when you run out of space and time?
Well, we haven't yet. We haven't yet. I mean, right now, all of our producers are getting three slots a week for their shows. So everybody gets their choice of position of where they want to show their show, the time and the date. So, and we still have open time. So we haven't gotten to that place yet. And one of the things that we're probably going to do is we're going to split up the public. I mentioned that Channel 8 is public and government. Well, we have the opportunity to pull that apart. So then everything that's on Channel 8 now that's government related, city council meetings and all that other stuff, will be on its own channel. So we're not there yet. But that's a good question. Okay, so being a producer, what does a producer do? Everything. Okay? You're the person responsible for making things happen. Does that mean that you as an individual have to perform every single duty and everything? Does it? No, because you delegate. Like I mentioned Deborah Crosby on her Talent Quest show. She had like 10 or 12 people that one person was responsible for signing people in, another person was responsible. She had a couple of camera people, she had an audio person, she had a person to go out and get pizza. She had this whole group. But ultimately, as the producer, she had to make sure that everything was taken care of. And this is from our training manual, which you will get this training manual not tonight, but I think in the Thursday class, if we have is it Thursday or Friday that yours is Wednesday, but anyway, you'll get this manual since today we're not going to touch on anything that's in this manual. But those of you who are taking the camera course, the mics, the sound, everything, you'll be getting this. But from our manual, what it says here is that a producer is responsible for the creation, coordination, and administration of the entire program and its variables. When Sandra Lawson came to us, she said, I want to do a show on gardening. And she didn't know anything about television. And she learned, and as she produced each show, she became wiser and she became more knowledgeable, and she knew what sorts of things she needed to concentrate on, if she wanted guests, if she wanted what we call B-roll, images or other kind of footage. She knows much more about that now, right, Sandra?
I do, and I measure that by how many times Walt gives me the eagle eye. And it doesn't happen too much anymore.
No, she does very well. She's very good on camera. Yeah. Either one, I alternate. Yeah. Okay. Now, just a little bit about paperwork. There's really not a lot of paperwork. You have a membership application, which all of you have filled out, or you wouldn't be here. If you want to be a producer, you would fill out a program proposal form, which tells BevCam, okay, I want to do a series, or I want to do a special event, or whatever. I'd like to do this once a month, once a quarter, what have you. And you sign a user agreement form, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. And then, of course, we give you the access rules, policies, procedures, so you know how things are run around here, what you can do, what you can't do, and that sort of thing. And every producer, and this is standard across the country at every access station, as it probably is in any other kind of producer, distributor, let's say, agreement, you are responsible for the program content, and that's what that disclaimer says. So that if Sandra Lawson says something bad about nasturtiums, and the National Nasturtium Society calls me up and says, "What did BevCam?" I say, BevCam had nothing to do with it. Talk to Sandra Lawson. She's the producer. So you basically. We're the conduit. BevCam provides you the resources. We're the conduit. You are responsible for the program content. So if there are copyright issues or slander or illegality, you can't advertise, obviously. So it's you own it. It's your program. It really is. And we'll talk a little bit later about what you can do with your program and the footage beyond what just showing it on BevCam. Okay. So is everybody clear on that? That you are the program content determiner. Now, we can give you ideas about how to increase and better your production values, how to light better, maybe how you set up your sets, or what kind of B-roll you want to introduce. But the content is yours. You're responsible for the content. And if you want suggestions from us, and you ask us, we'll gladly, if you take our advice or not take our advice, that's up to you. Yes, Sylvia.
I think I asked this question before, but just to refresh my memory, with the no advertising, I'm aware that when Oyuna came, and then at the end of the program we put, if anybody wanted to make contributions to the scholarship fund, they could. So that's different from outward advertising,
yes,
right?
And if you hold that question, I have a whole slide on that, okay? So it's a very good question, and I'll address that in an upcoming slide, okay, Sylvia? Okay. Okay. And there are, generally speaking, the types of programs you can do a series, which is what George Binns is on Fred wants to do a series. Certainly Sandra does a series of shows. Or you can do an event, a particular event. We did this in the Memorial Building about 2 or 3 years ago when there was a big hot debate between Tierney and Hudak. And we filled that whole auditorium at Memorial. There were 900 people there. And the police had to come in and do a, what do they call that, what do you call it with the dogs? Yeah, a sweep, yeah. Because Tierney's a U.S. congressman and all that. It was right in the middle of election, and it was with that stuff with his wife and all that. It was crazy, but that was an event. And you can tape and document an event, or you can do a documentary. This is one of our producers who a few years ago did a documentary on the Beverly High School marching band. And she started off in the summer before school started when the band came to band rehearsals and band practice, and she showed the kids just learning how to march and falling over each other and practicing, and then she culminated in how they performed on the field during halftime of a football game and a performance during the fall concert. So you can do any type of program that you care to. So some of the typical activities, again, that being a producer, see all the little puzzle parts. You come up with a program concept or idea, and I think, Amy, you're still kind of thinking about that part. What is it exactly that you want to do, right, in terms of programming? So you're probably at the very beginning, or maybe you're farther along than that. I don't know. So you would have some pre-production meetings. And that's what BevCam, you come to us and say, you know what I'd like to do? I think I'd like to do this. And then we kind of flesh it out with you because, we're kind of the expert. When you walk in, you don't know anything about producing television, and we try to give you the benefit of our experience and say, okay, you can do that, you can do this, how about that? Or how would you do this? Because you come in, you have kind of like an idea in your head, but you don't quite know how to translate that into actual television. What does the viewer actually see? So we can talk about set design. We can talk about B-roll that you might need. If you have guests or if you have talent, if you have bands or whatever, you as the producer have to go and you have to contact those people and you have to say, the taping is going to be at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon in the BevCam studio, okay? You roll for, you call us for studio time. And all our studio time, except for stuff that's preset, like for instance, city council meetings or things that we're required by our contract to do, is on a first come, first served basis. So if Sandra calls us up and says, next Wednesday at 3, I want to tape my show, and Fred says, I want to tape my show at 3, we say, sorry, Sandra, Sandra's already booked that time, pick a different time. So it's very, it's informal, but that's how we do it, okay? Yes, Jim.
I'm just not familiar with what B-roll footage is.
Okay, B-roll, very simple to explain. If let's say you have a show where you're talking with a guest, and I say, Sylvia, that's a great story about you climbing Mount Everest. And she says, you know what? I have some footage that was taken of my Sherpa and I. Let's take a look at it now. And so then, so we cut away, and there's the footage of Sylvia climbing Mount Everest. That's what's called B-roll. It's something that's in addition that you can voice over, or it might have its own soundtrack. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a video footage. It could be an image. When Fred did his show, he had just a marvelous array of rich footage of, because he did a show on among others, he had a very famous, world famous artist who did a lot of pictures of prehistoric plants and animals that have become like the standard by which that's judged. So when he did his show, he had a lot of footage, a lot of images of this what was the guy's name again?
Charles R. Knight.
Charles R. Knight, yeah.
I've seen that.
So
Have you
yeah,
seen this
very
show?
good. If you haven't seen Fred's show, it's great. So that's what B-roll is called. It's something that you insert in addition to what you're talking about and doing on the set. It's called B-roll, okay?
In relation to that particular subject, now, I have a friend in Mongolia who did a talk on the New Year. He happened to put it on YouTube, but I know usually YouTube you can't play, at least that's my understanding, but I know him, and so I could probably get permission. So would that then be able to be used for a B-roll?
If you get permission from whoever made it, sure, absolutely.
And then, well, the details of how to get that off and on.
We can, don't worry about that now. I mean,
Okay.
we have experts, Robert and Kim,
Okay.
Kim and Robert, they're experts on how to do that. So if you have other footage, outside footage that's available, we can use it, yeah. Okay, good question though. All right, so as the producer, you got to make sure all these pieces are put together. Okay, so and you would utilize other people and helpers and that would assist you in that endeavor. And during pre-production meetings, we have these with our new producers. I described a little bit what we do. So you meet with us. And a lot of times you have what's called a storyboard, and you could have either a storyboard that you've got kind of mind pictures in your mind that you say, okay, so the first one is this, and then I see, or you could actually have them all written out. We had a producer, Leah Hill, on autism. She is probably one of the best producers at creating a storyboard, and when we go out on a remote shoot, we did a shoot at Nevin's farm up in Methuen, and she wanted to show, because she's an autism consultant, and she wanted to show how autistic children, by interacting with animals, how this is therapeutic for them. So we went out there, and we got permission to go in and see the horses and the dogs and all the rest of the stuff. And she had everything and Kim was there, and she had everything. She said, I'd like about 2 or 3 minutes of a horse grooming and this and the student, and then I'd like to have that. She had it all laid out. So when we went on that remote shoot, we got through that in an hour and a half. And I mean, some producers, they'll come in, and again, I'm not saying this because sometimes you plan, to a lot of detail. Sometimes you don't plan to that much detail. But sometimes we'll go out on a shoot and we'll say, well, what do you want to do? And I'm not sure. What do you think? So it's much more difficult if you haven't got an idea in your mind about, okay, what is it that I want to show? What images do I want the viewer to see? What's in my mind? What's my storyboard in my mind? And how do I then capture the footage? I always like to say that you cut the cloth to make the suit. So if your half-hour show, you say, this is what I want to do, then you say, okay, what do I need to do? I need to have a 15-minute interview with this person. I need B-roll that shows this. I need some images that show this. I need some maps and graphics and this is how we put it together, and that's my 30-minute show. There was a question. Yeah,
I just
Matt.
want to say too, like when you have a storyboard, it makes it so much easier in the editing process because you can just grab all that information that you have written down on your piece of paper and put it into the editor. So you can just get the show put together a lot quicker, because if you have a lot of footage, it can get kind of stressful if you have like footage all over the place.
Short through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, because if you know what you want it to look like, then you can sort through your footage and say, okay, and put it all on the timeline, and then you go, okay, get rid of that, okay, shorten this, put a transition here, so you can start working with all of your footage. Because a lot of times you may have duplicate footage, or you may have footage that, this is a little bit better, I'll put...
When I've had to do a talk or a report or something, it's the planning is very similar from what I'm understanding, and for myself, I call it reverse implementation, where you know what your goal is, and then you backtrack in order to reach that goal. What's the step I need to complete before that? For that step there, what's the step I need to complete before that? So I find it helps me to think in reverse, and that I start at the end and end up at the beginning, and then all of a sudden, I realize it comes together, and then you can more see clearly where you're holding.
Well, I think that's what we're saying. I think it's exactly what we're saying, so that your storyboard is your end. And then you say...
That's how I look at it,
Yeah.
it's reverse implementation.
Yeah, sure, exactly. So you say, okay, if this is what I want to finish with, okay, what pieces, if this is my suit, okay, how do I cut the sleeve? The sleeve's got to be this long, and the collar and all that. So good, that's a very good example, Jim. Thank you for that, yeah.
Then I'm taking it that would also apply if I were going to do, let's say, a program in my home on Mongolian folk art, which will have on my walls, but maybe I'll take them off, I don't know. But each one of those different pictures has a story. So when I like take a little snap and put that on a storyboard so that when the person comes to film it, they will have a picture ahead of time of what I'm going to do. And then they would use the camera on site and just go with the flow, but just be informed.
Well, yeah, I think if you want to do something that you've just described, that would be the way to do it, so that the camera person then would know, okay, that for this part of the show, you want to zero in on 5 or 6 or however many pieces of art that have a little story, and so that person could zoom in on that, or you could even do a freeze frame, or you could take a picture of it, so that one way you could do that is you could talk while they're taping, or you could do a voiceover afterwards, which is what which is what Fred did. Fred had all these images arranged. In fact, I think he tried to do it the first way the first time, and it didn't work too well, right? Trying to do the voiceover while you were doing it, and I think you did some voiceover after the fact. But either. Both. It was both. But yeah, that would be exactly the way you'd want to do it, and you'd certainly help out the videographer, your person taping it, and that would be for that portion of it. That would be your storyboard. You'd say, I want this image because I want to tell a little story because it talks about a Mongolian folk tale about whatever, and this one is important because there's this famous monument that's a Buddhist whatever, and you zero in on that, and that's how you engage the viewer because you're telling good, nice, interesting stories.
But I guess what I'm thinking is, I might put that on a piece of paper just for him to know, but then when the actual filming comes, I was thinking of it to be a live, either I'd have them on the wall and I'd walk around, or I would have them on next to my chair and I'd pick them up, so he wouldn't have to have data. Would that work?
You could do it either way, because the beauty of video editing afterwards is that it doesn't matter what order you did them while they were taping. You can cut and paste, and you can switch the order, and you can put little transitions, and you can add, you can lengthen the transition or put a still image, and you can, I forgot to say this, and then you can do a voiceover to add to that. Yeah, very good.
Back to the storyboard.
Yeah.
My program follows the same outline all the time. And websites that I want to add, I email to Robert. And so my storyboard is more mental in my own brain. It's not something I commit to writing. Is that something I should do?
No, I'm just saying that's why I mentioned at the beginning, your storyboard may just be in your head. But the important thing is that you have an idea. You just don't say, well, let's start taping. You have an idea what you want to do, because we've seen it, Kim will vouch for that, we've seen where people will go to a location and they won't have really thought about what they want to do, and it gets a little, you're not quite sure what you want to do, and then you're trying to, I should, and then later, I should have done that, or I should have done this, and maybe you repeat things that you didn't have to repeat. But in your mind, you can either write it out, or in your mind you know that I want to do this, I want to do that. And certainly what you're talking about is credits at the end and things like that. And we'll get to that, because that's an important part about what you can and can't put in credits and how you should handle that. Okay? A very, very good question. Okay? Okay, again, it's your program. The content is your decisions. We'll give you suggestions to enhance its production value. You have the final say on all aspects, and you can take our advice, or you don't have to. If we say, we think maybe you should do this, and you say, no, I want to do it this way, it's your call. You're the producer, and you have the final call on that. If you do remote stuff, okay, so you can check out equipment, and it's always good. And we do this, like when we go to the Arts Fest or Homecoming, or we tape the Red Cross Heroes Breakfast, or we do the Best Chefs competition. We have an equipment list for each of those productions. We create an equipment list, and then before we go, we usually the day before, a couple of days before, we stage all that stuff and put it into the reception area or into our equipment room, so that when it's time to load up the van to head to that location, you've got everything right there. The worst thing to do is to walk in and you say, okay, we got to drive to the location. Okay, let's start thinking about what we have to take with us. You're under pressure. You're not thinking. You might think that somebody else is taking this or somebody else is taking that, And a lot of, sometimes, like for instance, I mentioned here, power, is the place you're going to, if you're expecting to plug something in, whether it's a light or a camera or whatever, and there's no power around, guess what? You might need an extra long extension cord, okay? So, and a lot of times when you're doing remote tapings, visit the site before you go and see what it's like. And visit the site at the time of day that you're gonna tape there. Because I've seen it happen where somebody shows up in the morning and they're taping and the sun is over there and they go, oh, this is great. But their taping is scheduled for the afternoon. And the sun is over there, and so their camera is shooting into the sun. So I forgot about that. So visit the site, look at what you might need in props, how to rearrange, what's the available light, shadow. You may go there in the morning and there's available light, sunlight is streaming through the window, but you tape at 8 o'clock at night and it's dark and the indoor light isn't sufficient to tape, although the cameras today are pretty darn good in available light. But these are the things that I'm talking about. And also allow for plenty of time to set up. It's always better to give yourself some extra time, so you can, after you're all set up, you can sit back, have a cup of coffee, whatever. The worst thing is to get there and find, you're short on time and things are starting to happen, and maybe the equipment you have some sort of a failure, something's not quite working right, and you have to make an emergency stop back to the studio for a battery or something else, or a cable you needed that you forgot to bring. So always give yourself plenty of time. Yes, Joel?
Walt, I just had an idea, and I don't know, how you handle this or if you want, but in general, what I find, since I do some outdoor shooting, like track meets or whatever, I noticed at track meets, a lot of the schools will have canopies, and they'll put them up. If it's bad weather, they can sit under the canopy. So what I did, I went onto Amazon. And I looked up, I got like a 10 by 10 canopy. It was like under $200. I ordered it, so now I have it. And I haven't used it, but in case I should be filming, like in a rain situation, I have that available for me. And I don't know what your procedure is for you guys in case of rain, but
we have those.
You have those.
That's part of our equipment.
Yes. All right. Because I didn't see them listed, but.
Oh, I didn't list everything up there. Yeah, this is just to give you an idea. I mean, if I put a list of everything, that'd be hundreds of items long. No, we have that. And if you pay $200, you overpaid. I hope you haven't bought them yet. Yeah, you can get them from, where do we buy ours? From
Big Lots.
Big Lot for like $79.99.
Oh, really?
The big 12-foot.
Wow.
10 or 12 foot. Yeah, we use it. Every time we go out to Arts Fest or to Homecoming, we set those up over each camera. So for rain or for the protection from the sun or from, sometimes you don't want, if the sun is shining right into your lens or onto your, onto your LED screen. So yeah, that's standard stuff. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a situation where you're following an event, it might be difficult to, you can't lug that thing around. But if you're going to be stationary pretty much and the action is going to be in front of you, yeah, that's standard, as Kim said, that's standard equipment is one of those little tents. Yep. Yep. Good question, though. Getting a crew. Again, this is a producer's responsibility. If you belong to an organization, you try to see if you can get people that are in your organization to help out. You can do work associates, friends, family. We have a email there where the people that become members, we ask them, would you be willing to volunteer for productions? Not that you have to go every time somebody asks, but you have the option. So if you're a producer and you need someone, a camera person or a grip or whatever, you send an email out and say, I'm doing a production such and such. Sandra's done that. You've asked for volunteers and gotten volunteers for your show. So we have that available. And of course, BevCam staff, we're always here. If it's an in-studio production, we're always around. So we can always fill in camera, what have you, directing. And if it's a remote shoot, it needs a little bit more planning. So you have to make sure you have enough crew, people, equipment, as we said before, to do the shoot. Okay.
Well, if you're doing an out-of-studio shoot,
Yep.
do we do that through Heidi, set it up?
Yeah, just,
schedule it?
absolutely.
Schedule.
You would schedule it just the way you would schedule studio time, except you would come in and talk to us, Kim and Robert, myself, and say what you want to do, and then we would discuss with you and come up with that equipment list. So it might not just be a camera you need. You may need some other, you may need a tripod, you may need a boom camera, you may need a wireless mic, you may need, because a lot of times people don't think about the sound, because when you're in the studio, automatically, you've got the mics and it's right in the. When you're out there, and if you're just relying on the onboard mic on the camera, sometimes you'll be very, very disappointed because ambient noise will show through. If there's a highway nearby, or if the airplane's going over, whatever, you're listening to the conversation and your ears are kind of filtering that out. But guess what? The camera, the microphone in the camera is hearing everything. We had someone submit a very nice program. It was outdoors. It was very, very well done. But overhead, there were planes. It must have been somewhere near an airport. And there were planes flying. And they didn't mic the person. And the onboard camera mic, they were probably, I don't know, I would judge they were like maybe 8 or 10 feet from that person. But the camera kept picking up this noise. But when you have somebody mic'd and you have a little lavalier here, guess what? The pickup pattern is like this. Okay, so that lavalier, chances are something that's 50 feet away, it won't even hear unless it's a really, really loud decibel noise. But its pickup pattern is like this. So it's going to pick up that, and it's going to, all the rest of that noise, it'll fall off, like that. So these are the kinds of things. So if you're doing a remote shoot, come in to see us and discuss what it is you want to do, and we'll give you an idea so that you don't, make a real basic mistake. And then the worst thing is to come back to the studio and think you have footage that you can use, and guess what? I mean, we had someone one time taped an event, and for some reason they forgot to turn the mics on at all, and I think I forget what the problem was, but anyway, it was no sound on the tape. Okay. We are also, this is non-commercial, our contracts, and the federal law says these are non-commercial programs. And the quid pro quo here is that you, as members, use our studio resources, whether it's the studio or cameras or whatever, and you have to produce shows that are aired for BevCam, okay? That's the quid pro quo. As long as you do that, as long as you fulfill that, we're good. We're good, okay? The equipment's not for personal use. Every so often we get a person will come in and say, I want to become a member, and then I want to check out a camera, and they go to their son's, they're having some big birthday bash or graduation or something, and they tape and they give us our camera back and say, thank you very much. Well, are you doing it? Well, I don't know. Well, we'll see you later. And that's not what it's for, okay? So. And you own the rights to the show. It's, like Sandra, you can post your show on YouTube, you can put it on a website, a Facebook page, whatever. And the other rule here is that you cannot sell the program for commercial gain. And I'll explain why I have the asterisks there. If you want to produce a program at BevCam, you want to use our studio equipment, I have a list of costs, what it would cost. It's a rate card, just like any studio for hire would have a rate card for a studio, for cameras, for whatever. And I had one of my, in fact, it was Deborah Crosby who did that show, the Talent Quest show. She had a project where she had to tape some people for a money-paying thing that she was doing with them. So I sold her studio time so that she could tape whatever she needed, and she paid me for that. But since she was a producer, I didn't like charge her an arm and a leg, but I did have to have an arm's length transaction between me and her, where she paid me for use of the studio and the cameras. Okay.
So you're saying that we produce it, it's primarily for BevCam, but then we can do whatever else as well, as long as it's not for commercial.
Yeah. Yes. And putting it on a website is not considered commercial. Putting it on a Facebook page is not considered commercial. But if you stamp out 1,000 of them and go somewhere and sell them for $15 a piece, that's not what it's supposed to do. And I will make, and I think I have it on the next page, what my a little distinction in that. Joel?
I'm assuming that if anybody appears in the video or whatever, and you post it on YouTube or Facebook, do they have to agree to that, or?
Let me get, I have a slide that I'm going to get to that addresses that, okay? Could I talk about copyright and different things like that? Okay.
Before we go there, if it's posted on YouTube,
Yeah.
BevCam should be given credit?
Well, you don't necessarily have to. We have stuff. We have our own YouTube channel. BevCam has its own YouTube channel, so we pick and choose programs of our own of ours that either stuff that we've done that BevCam has produced, or stuff that we've done in conjunction with some of our producers, and we put stuff on YouTube. We do it with if it's a co-produced thing, or if it's one of your shows, and we say, oh, we want to put it on our channel, we have to get we ask for your permission. But what was your question?
Well, one of my guests is posting our
Show?
show
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
They have to get your
just-
permission, not my permission, because it's your show.
Do we give credit to BevCam?
You can, or you don't have to. We don't.
Studio,
Yeah, we don't have to. You don't have to necessarily. It would be nice to do it, but it's not. We don't consider, as long as we've shown it on our channel, and then our relationship is satisfied.
So you need to air it first before it's.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we have to air. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, like 2 hours before you. But yeah, it has to be a program that is aired on BevCam. I mean, it has to be like, for instance, if you tape a show now and you put it into rotation, and we don't show it till next month, but you put it on YouTube or something else now, that still satisfies the thing. Physically, it doesn't in a timeline. It doesn't have to appear time-wise before you use it some other way. Because I know you have a lot of producers will produce a number of shows, and then they'll say this show is for February, this show is for March, this show is for April, and so we respect that. So that, and I think sometimes you do more than one show at a time, and Sandra will tell us, okay, I want this show played until February 15th, and then the next show I have, I want you to play that starting then, and that's how we'll play them. But meanwhile, if that show hasn't played yet, you certainly can, whoever might be on it, they want to put it on their own website, they're certainly free to do that.
Did you ever have anything come through that you reject, that you don't want to show for whatever reason?
The general answer to that is no. We're not even supposed to screen your stuff for content. But if we see something that we think is illegal, we'll clue you in on it. We'll say, but I'll make, and I'm going to come to stuff. I have a couple, 3 slides on that very topic. Okay, but these are all very good questions. Okay, non-commercial. Here's the crux of it. There cannot be an overt call to action on a program. So if you're have a show on home improvement, and you have a florist on the show talking about flower range, and you can't say, hey, and by the way, we've got roses this weekend, $19.95 a dozen. You can't say that. However, you can acknowledge that florist, let's say, can say, Sandra Lawson's floral shop, 201 Cabot Street. My website is www. My phone number is . You can do that. You can acknowledge that person, but you can't say, geraniums next week, whatever. Okay. You can do all kind of acknowledgments in your credits, set decoration, hairstyles, whatever you want. Okay. You can give website information, you can give phone numbers and things like that. You can give the what, who, what, when, where, why of an event. If you have a show and you've interviewed someone, the Kiwanis Conversation show is very common in that. He interviews a lot of nonprofits that have events coming up. Of course, but those shows have a time limit, because you can't, if you're interviewing someone, I'm interviewing Jim Morocco about an event that the Historical Society is having in March 3rd. Well, after March 3rd, that show isn't airable anymore, because I'm specifically talking about that event. Okay, and that's what. And then on shows where you have people expressing political views or other kinds of views, I guess, and this is what we do on What's Happening show, is we put a disclaimer that the views expressed are those of the participants who do not necessarily represent the views of BevCam, its staff, board of directors, blah blah blah. That's we have a disclaimer on that. So it's the people talking on the show who take responsibility for what they say. And even the producer of the show, if they have a guest, also say that. So they distance themselves from the person that's talking. Right, George? Okay. Sorry? You know. Now, selling DVD copies of a show. Now, we had a producer that produced a show, and she incorporated herself as a nonprofit. And she would give these little seminars and these little talks and things. And she would have a DVD of the show that was for nonprofit, and the proceeds went to a nonprofit. So she'd sell 1 or 2 every time, 3 or 4. Okay, so we said, that's fine, you can do that. Okay, we didn't consider that was a commercial use. Okay? But when you start stamping out 500 and selling them for $15 a piece, that's a different story. Okay?
And then that Oneonta School Scholarship Fund, that would be a nonprofit. So as a result of giving a talk, maybe I'll say, well, I have some DVDs. If you want to make a donation, please feel free
There you
to
go.
make one.
There you go. Donation.
Okay.
That's a key word. Okay?
Well, this call to action, we do a lot of political stuff, and usually it's vote this way or vote that way, or that.
You're not selling anything.
Oh, so those we're not selling.
No, you're not selling it. Non-commercial. You're
Advocating for
yeah, you're advocating for people to vote a certain way or to
congressmen to do something.
whatever. Yeah, that's not considered commercial content. No. That's your First Amendment right to your.
Okay, thank you.
Now we do have community bulletin boards, or we call them public service announcements, and I have to clean this up because we just changed this. It's actually 5 to 5:30, and did we eliminate the 11 to 12 one? I think we did. But anyway, we run these at certain times during the day, and then we run them what's called interstitially, which means that if a program ends and another one doesn't start, because in local access, we don't run things exactly on the hour and half hour, because you may have a show that's supposed to be a half hour. It may be 28 minutes and 42 seconds or 31 minutes. To us, it's not that key. But what a lot of our producers are doing, the reason I bring this up, is that they do promo spots for their shows. And the kids are the ones that are so good at this. And the kids that do these shows here, I think most of them, at least 2/3 of them, have little promo spots on Channel 22, which says, watch the Far Out show, and they have like little skits, or they do, and they're very, very clever, and they give the times that they're on, and we run those during the community bulletin board time. And some of our regular producers have also run some shows, but I think I'd like to encourage producers to run more promo slots. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Now, copyright and fair use, okay? Now, there's a basic rule that says, if you use copyrighted work, you need to get permission. However, there are ways that you can use copyrighted work without getting permission, okay? And there's things called fair use, but let me talk about a transformative use, okay? Adding value to the piece and using it for a purpose different from the original work. And this really most often happens like in an educational purpose or an explanatory purpose. For instance, you could have a show and you could talk about the styles of dress throughout the ages. Why people dressed a certain way during the Middle Ages, during the Stone Age, if they dressed back then, the Elizabethan times, etc. Okay, the Wild West, and you could take little snippets of Hollywood movies, okay. And if they were dressed that way, you could have that little snippet and say, here, the reason that they're wearing these kinds of leggings is because you remember that the only thing available, they had to trap the animals, whatever. You are using that footage for a transformative use. You're adding value and using it for an educational purpose or a purpose different from the original work. You're not using it as a full-scale, full-length Hollywood movie. You're not telling the whole story in the movie, you're just taking snippets of it and using it for a transformative use. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. We went to a seminar one time where the presenter showed, I don't know, maybe 12 or 15 uses of copyright material, and we were asked after each one, can you use this, can you not use it? And for most of them, 90% of the people said, no, 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 no. And then at the end, the presenter said, you can use it in every one of those because of fair use and transformative use, okay? Something called incidental music. Let's say that you're taping something. Let's say you're in a garage and the guy he works on muscle cars, and your show is about how to juice up car engines and whatever. And in the background, the Rolling Stones are playing. I can't get no. Okay, do you have to cut that out? No, that's incidental music. It happens to be on the radio that the guy that's working in that garage is listening to.
But you couldn't put a snippet in of the Rolling Stones.
Well, it depends on whether you got permission or not. Okay, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But I'm talking about if it's incidental, if it's part of the scene that you're taping, there's a loudspeaker that's playing something, or a radio that's on, or a TV that's on while you're taping this thing. That's incidental, okay? Now, the public versus private. If you're in a public place where the public can walk, a public park, whatever, the street, and you're taping stuff, you don't have to get people's permission. Okay, if you want to interview them, you should get their permission. If they're just walking by and you happen to catch them in your shot, and it's a wide shot, and you're shooting a monument or something, and they walk by, you don't have to get every person's permission that was there. But if you want to interview them, usually what happens, like I did the interview at the Polar Plunge yesterday. Okay, and so I simply said, and what is your name? The fact that they say their name to me and they see the camera there, that's considered tacit approval to talk to them. So I didn't have to get a signed release from each of those people. The fact that I said, can we talk to you? We're with BevCam, and what is your name? That you've agreed.
If I ask if it's okay to talk to them, then they give their name.
Yeah, in fact, I don't even specifically have to. Usually if I say, we're with BevCam, can we talk to you? Or, we're going to, let's talk. And you say, yeah, and you start talking to me, you've given your permission. Okay.
But do they know that?
Yeah.
I'm sure I wouldn't have known that.
Well, they don't. It's immaterial whether they know that or not. I mean, they've said, yeah, I want to talk to you. If they didn't want to talk to you, they'd say no.
Well, legally you're protected.
Legally you're protected.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
They can't come back later because they say, well, he said he said I'm with BevCam. What's your name? I'd like to talk. You could say no, I don't want to talk to you. And people sometimes do that. Now, if you're in a private venue, let's say you're in a private nightclub, and you're shooting, and you get people in there, you have to get their permission, and you sometimes see these things where things are blocked out. So the person taking that shot isn't going to walk around to everybody that's in that shot. What they'll do is they'll fuzz out the faces, and you've seen that. And when we did the show, I mentioned it before, the Live at Chianti, usually Rich would say, we're taping the shows, you can see our cameras here, and you might be in some of the shots, just want to let you know. If you don't want to be in the shots, go over into the shadows, whatever. So you give the people the opportunity. So you've told them ahead of time, hey, we're taping and you might be in the shots. And it's then their responsibility to get out of the way. Okay? So there's the difference there between a public and a private. Now, there's something called fair use. And if you want to write down those, or I can make this slide available to you if you don't get this all. But fair use, there are a number of ways that you can use copyrighted material. And if you go on those websites, you'll get something like this. This is probably, I don't know how many pages here, 8 or 10, but this is one of the best things if you're going to produce something and you're worried about copyright or fair use. If you go on those websites, this is what you'll get, and you can print this off, all right? And it basically talks about the fact that if you're using it for a transformative purpose, you're using it as an educational thing, you can use it in terms of fair use. The other thing to consider is you're a local access nonprofit producer at a nonprofit station, okay? They cut you a lot more slack than they would if you were, let's say, going to take a song and perform it and cut DVDs of it and sell it, okay? In fact, most of the time, and I've done this personally and I've seen other people do it, if you try to get in touch with the people that have the, first of all, finding the people who have the rights to songs, and sometimes it's pretty difficult to find out who has the rights to images or songs or movies. If you try to get through to those people, you'll have a heck of a time doing it. Because they don't want to hear from individual people who are going to make a little 30-minute thing for local access television. They want to hear from people who want to take a part of their movie and incorporate it into some other big extravaganza, a stage play or something where they're going to take and they're going to have hundreds and thousands of people come in and they're going to be paid money. That's what they want, a part of that. But they realize you guys are not making any money. The station, we're non-commercial. There's no money in us, okay? They really don't care. It also depends on the amount used and the effect on the market for the copyright. Do you think that if you take a little snippet of a popular song and put it, 15 seconds of it in your thing, that the sales of that album or whatever are going to be diminished because you did that? Hardly. Okay, I will tell you this, that I've been around local access for more than 10 years, and I have never yet, I don't have one single example of any producer, anybody I know, and I haven't heard of anything, getting a letter from a lawyer saying, cease and desist, don't do this, don't do that. Now, am I saying do anything? I'm not saying that. I mean, you should get permission, but there are a lot of ways that you can get around it, and most of the time, people don't care. I'm just saying that. So I wouldn't consider, and there's enough, if you're talking about music, and I think I'll get to that in another slide, there's so much free stuff on the internet.
We have a whole library of it.
Yeah, and we have a whole library of it. Joel.
Just for the sake of argument, you have to be careful what you post on YouTube because for one time somebody did a flash mob and they used Michael Jackson's Thriller. I posted it. The next day I got a notice this is against copyright violation.
Right, YouTube does it. They have a filter for that. It's happened to me.
And another time I posted, it was the Boston Strong on Salem Common. They sang Amazing Grace or God Bless America or something. I posted it, copyright violation.
Yeah. Okay, now remember, I'm not talking about YouTube. I'm talking about showing it on BevCam. BevCam and stuff like that, I'm not completely up to all of that stuff on YouTube and what the restrictions are. I'm talking about showing it on a local access, a nonprofit, cable access station. That's what I'm talking about here. If you take it further on, then you're going to have to get advice or you're going to have to figure out what you can and can't do. Good point. Okay? And I think we have the next, oh yeah, there it is. So there are so many things available. We'll show you if you want to, or you can do it yourself. Just Google, music or free pictures. There's so much stuff that's available on the internet. I mean, if you want, Hungarian accordion wedding music, you can find it. If you want to have Brazilian native, flute chants, you can find it there. 18 different types of jazz, you can find it. Okay? And
also, my other question is, does any of it have to do with how much of it you're using, a snippet opposed to?
Yeah, I mentioned that before. The amount used. Yeah, that certainly. Yeah, if you use a snippet, okay, as opposed to a whole song. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now. A lot of people want to distribute their show or have viewership of their show beyond just BevCam, because remember, BevCam is only shown in Beverly. It's shown by Comcast in Beverly. If you want to expand your distribution beyond, there's a number of ways that you can do this. We call this term bicycling. That's the term we use in the industry. You're bicycling content to other stations or other areas, okay? The old way to do it was you'd take a DVD, or back in the old days you have a tape, and you just mail it somewhere, or physically take it and say, Sandra, can you play this on BevCam? And that's how you would do it. Now, there are ways you can do it there are sites where you can upload content, and then local access stations then can go to those same sites and download content. Okay? It's like a cloud thing, all right? And some of them get pretty sophisticated where if you want to limit who can download it or how they can use it, you can fill out certain kind of contracts and license restrictions on it. Most of the ones like Peg Media is one that's just pretty much open-ended. The idea is if you put it up there, you're saying to anybody in local access, you can use this as much as you want, wherever you want, whenever you want. I don't care. It's out there for you to use. In Massachusetts, there's something called My Mass TV Network, and we can show you how to get on these. Robert and Kim know, certainly Robert knows a lot about that, and Matt will know a lot about this. He probably does already. But My Mass TV is Massachusetts-based, and you can upload content to the My Mass TV, and you can download content from there. It started out as being strictly government agencies, you know, the State Department of Taxation, the State Liquor Department, the State Transportation Department would produce shows. Now, individuals and stations can set stuff up. A national one, it used to be the CMDN, the Community Media Distribution Network TV. Now it's Telview, and if you go to this here and look for it, you'll find Telview Connect Media Exchange. And again, it's like a cloud thing where you can upload content and you can download content. You can be what's called a syndicator, the person that uploads content, or you can be the person that downloads content. You can be the affiliate. That's the terms that they use, okay? And if you're interested in any of that stuff, I don't want to go deeply into that, but certainly we can help you do that. And I know a lot of our producers have produced shows that have gone on. I mean, the old way to do it is they would say to me, hey, Walt, can you help me do this? And I would call up my friends in Salem and in Peabody and Danvers and Cape Ann and say, hey, you know, we've got a show here one of our producers did, and can I send you the DVD, or can they send you the, yeah, we'll show it. But now you don't even have to send media out because you just do it through any website, any internet connection, and you can get on these sites and upload that content. Okay, and we go through this. You know, Robert goes through this content on a regular basis. He and I, and we look at what we might want to download, because a lot of times stuff that's done at the state level might be interesting. You know, new changes in tax law or whatever. So we bring it down because it has interest in our community. Yeah, PEG Media and TCME, the Telview Community Media Exchange, media transfer sites. It's an easy way for producers to make their program available to many stations simultaneously, and at the same time to give stations a wide variety of programming from which to choose. So that if I'm a station in, you know, somewhere in Wyoming that doesn't have the broad array of programming that, like, let's say BevCam does, and I want to give my viewers a little more, I'll go around to these sites and say, oh, okay, I could use this. This is an interesting program. This is an interesting. None of my producers are doing this. They're not doing that. And that way you can fill out your schedule, and you'll get more viewers. People will be more interested in watching your channel. Okay? Being a producer. And again, we will help train, we'll advise you, we'll help you, we'll assist you on location, we'll help you with logistics, give you technical advice, and hopefully you know the old saw about, you know, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, and feed him for a lifetime. So we want to teach you to fish. We want to teach you how to do television, how to do videography, how to do remotes, so that you're self-sufficient. And not that we won't help you. We meet a broad array of people. It's like a bell-shaped curve, right? So you got people on this end who are just unbelievable geeks and detail-oriented and just really have everything just sewn down to the last detail. And then you have people down here who like, but we deal with everybody and we don't turn anybody away. But most people here are, here. Some do a little bit more preparation and work, others do less or whatever. But we give you as much advice and support and resources as you need to fulfill your dream. That's what we're about, okay? We don't turn anybody away, and we don't look down our noses at anybody and say, boy, that person really doesn't understand this. Well, yeah, a lot of people don't, because that's not what they do. Maybe they don't have they don't know as much about prehistoric Earth as Fred does. But does Fred make value judgments because people don't know as much as he does? No, because there's probably only 2 people in the world that know more than he does.
20,000.
Anyway, you get my point. So, good luck, and thank you very much for your attention. And any other questions?
I'd just like to attest to how helpful the BevCam crew is. Because when I did my first show, oh my God, I don't think I slept for a week. I was so nervous, and it required so much editing. Kim's looking up at the ceiling. He had to help me with so much of it. It was quite a task, but they were wonderful. They helped to get on the air, and I told people about it, how bad it was, and they came back and they said, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah, we all tend to be.
But you all fixed it.
So well.
You know, the one good thing about this process, and I didn't know diddly about, I didn't know how to hold a camera 5 years ago. And the process is such that when you do a show, you learn so much from what I shouldn't have done on that first show, that your second show is automatically better, and your third is even better. So by default, by just nature, just makes your, and eventually your show, if you do enough of them, they become what we call cookie cutter. We have some shows, like your show, George, right? They're cookie cutter. These people come in, they have their own crew, they've got their act together. We just stand around and wait until they're done, and they do a show every month. So it's possible. I mean, just learn from every show. The first one out of the gate, we'll always say, don't sweat the detail in the first one. It's going to be rough on that first one.
Yep.
Right?
You're expecting perfection on the first one. You're not going to get it, so don't even try to get perfection. If you hit it, well, okay, everybody does an Orson Welles every once in a while. But you'll learn. And there's this thing we tell people, the first one, get it done. Don't, there's this tendency to like, I mean, Fred, you experienced a little bit, didn't you, Fred?
I spent 2 months editing my first show.
But it turned out fantastic. I mean, it really did turn out well. But we tell people, get the first one, because the second one becomes that much easier. It really does. So for the newbies here, okay, Amy and you're going to do a new show. Joel's been through it. George has the regular thing. Jim did a very nice show that had a lot of B-roll in it and a lot of images and music and things, but he hasn't done anything with actual moving, videography or whatever. So hopefully he'll. No. No, yours was, yeah.
But that's kind of like a nice intro for someone who doesn't know anything. And I felt very comfortable at this low level of putting together what I did. And it really got me interested in trying to figure out how to do more. But that's what's nice with BevCam, because they take in every level. You don't have to be a producer like you guys have aspired to and have attained a level of wonder. That would have scared me off immediately. But he took me in, and when I was at, just a little sprout.
The key word you mentioned, confidence. It really builds confidence after you do 2, 3, 4, 5 shows. Sometimes they start telling us how we can maybe do things better. So it's a great environment. It is so addictive. I mean, if you take my editing course, talk about being addicted. I mean, that's a whole, Fred, that's a whole new world. Right?
I come in with the world now.
That's right.
So I think a lot of you folks are scheduled to take, I think we have about 5 or 6 more classes in this series that are going this week and next week, and they'll all be done in the other, in the studio. And you'll be getting, I'm not going to hand these out tonight, but you'll be getting these studio production training manual, which, you know, all the training will refer to this, and then you'll have this to, you know, talk to you about, for instance, the different types of connectors on the different types of wires and cameras and microphones and so on and so forth. So you'll be getting this if you go on. So yeah, and I think those are, if you're in those classes, you've gotten communication from Heidi, the times and the dates. I think the next one is it tomorrow night? Wednesday night. Wednesday night, Kim is doing a basic editing 101. So. All right, thank you all, folks. Thank you for your attention and very, very good questions. Very good questions. Thank you.